What's up, humans, and welcome back to the Human Music Podcast. This is episode 62, Finishing Music Projects. So, of course, this week we're talking about finishing music projects. Like, what's it like to finish a song for a label release? How about finishing a whole EP or even an album? We are going in on all of that today. Make sure you take a second to support our sponsors. Those links are down below. The Producer Dojo Summit. On July 10th, the dojo's putting on an online music festival, and on the 11th, it's doing a day of producer classes from the Senseis. All free. Sign up below. Second, Dojo TV, where we recorded this podcast and where a lot of Dojo Senseis do free producer live stream classes. That's also free. Sign on up. The weekly download, where you can learn from Il Gates in his private weekly group lessons and get access to over 230 more episodes in the archive for just $20 a month. Finally, guest practices, where you can learn from Seth Drake at the Approach Institute. He's the best engineer we know, and your first class over there is free. The song behind me today is my remix, the Luke Rain remix of Tell Me by Torbjorn, that came out on his remix EP earlier this year. There's links down below for that as well. We appreciate y'all, humans. Now let's get into the episode.
Hello, people of Earth. This is Tesco with Rip Kenny and Trap Jesus, and you're listening to the Human Music Podcast. Woo!
Human Music Podcast. I like it. Hey, what's up, humans? Big up, chat.
Hey. Big up.
Hey, I want to give a big shout out to Goosetronics, who dropped a little gem for us in the Discord chat, the Dojo Discord. Did you guys see that? He's got all three of us in the car with Jerry while he's listening to human music. Tesco's cozied up to Jerry in the front seat there, and
oh my god!
And then yeah, and then we got me and Rip Kenny cozied up in the back seat. Oh man, yeah, I gotta make sure. Can one of y'all save that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We gotta keep that. One of y'all save that really quick. I'm running too many things over here.
I got it.
All right.
Are you buckled up in the middle seat next to Jerry?
I'm sitting in his lap.
That's what I'm
so
saying.
cute.
You're
you got your left hand way too high up his thigh right now. You're uncomfortably high on his thigh.
Not for him. He's not uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He says, I like it.
Oh my god, of course. Of course he does.
Well, what's up, humans?
I like it.
What's up, humans? Welcome back. It's been a minute since we were live on Dojo TV. We're super pumped to be back with you guys. Big up, chat. Especially Goosetronics, who made us that fun picture. We're definitely going to put that on the interwebs more than once. So
Goose
thank
boy.
you for that. We'll tag you. We'll tag you when we post that on Twitter and shit. But yeah, today, what are we talking about, guys? We got a plan, huh?
Yeah. So we're going to go in this episode on talking about, setting some realistic expectations when it comes to developing bigger projects and how to set your mind straight on actually completing music, how to set your mindset straight for, approaching that kind of bigger picture goal and breaking it all down. And we're going to talk about our experiences. We'll talk a bit about, what it was like releasing that first EP. Should you release an EP? Should you release singles? All that good stuff. And any questions that all of y'all got in the chat here. Today's all about finishing. So let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah. So you guys have both released Dojo EPs. I've released some Dojo singles. And we know that Rip Kenny is balls deep in album mode right now.
I am.
Working hard to get a full-length project out the gate. And what does it really mean to finish music? A lot of people, in lessons will be like, man, I just feel like I'm not finishing enough music. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably because you're at yellow belt and finishing music is a brown belt move, and finishing a project with more than one song is a black belt move. And so it's totally okay that you're not finishing music. How about just finish arrangement exercises until you get orange belt, and then we'll work on like finishing mixes until you got blue belt, you know, and focus on where you're at. But so what does it really mean to finish a song?
First off, I'm curious who in the chat is struggling with this right now, or who's trying to finish a song or EP or whatever. Let us know. But yeah, Evan,
what are you working on?
I'd love to know about how the album's coming along, sort of where you're at with that, and tell the people what they should expect. And
I'll start us off. At first, I want to preface this whole conversation with the fact that finishing music is such an expansive thing. Like, the reason you probably haven't finished as much music as you think you probably should have is because finishing the song takes much longer than making the song. Like, coming up with the ideas, getting an arrangement, getting a rough draft of a song is like between 10 and 30 to 35% of the process. The reason you usually burn out and don't finish the song is because there's so much more work that is tedious, that you spend 4 hours to make a 1% improvement on the song, and you just end up getting frustrated and just demotivated by the fact that the amount of time you're putting in isn't creating additional appreciable work product, right? So then you're like, well, fuck this, I'm just going to start a new song. That's like the logical thing to go through your head. You feel like you're spinning your wheels. That is the first thing to keep in mind when you're considering finishing a song, an EP, an album, anything. You have to mentally prepare yourself for the fact that you're going to have multiple days where you work on that song for like writing session level lengths of time and make like 1 to 5% improvements. Like, that's just the name of the game. Like, for instance, when I started making music, the first track that I made, and the funny part is I didn't know it at the time how bad of a habit this was, but it actually was like a decent lesson in finishing a song, because the first song that I ever made, I took it start to finish, and I spent like 4 months on it, and that's like working on it like every night I came home from work, like literally every night for 4 months. And then it was like done, and I put it on SoundCloud, and I was like, sick, all right, next one.
And then you blew up, right? And then you got all the like fame and success that you were hoping for.
Dude, I got a whole 6 followers, which is my mom, my brother, my cousin, like that. It takes forever. And especially like when you're a beginner, like, and you don't know like how to finish it. Like, I didn't even use a single EQ, and I was like, yeah, the song's done. Like, I didn't even know those fine tools, what they did or why I would use them. Like, I literally was just like, okay, yeah, I just screwed with stuff until it felt done. And then I was like, okay, this is done. I didn't master it. I like literally just like put the Ableton limiter on it, and like, it wasn't very loud at all. At least I put a limiter on it though. But like that is like a micro level example of like your career of finishing stuff, of how the process is basically the same. You fuck with it until you're like, there's nothing left to change. And the example of me finishing a song without even using an EQ is a perfect representation of the fact that when you're a beginner, finishing a song looks very, very different to when you're at, like a pro level. Like, it's the same thing. Like, you're screwing with it until it's done, but you have to understand the limits of your knowledge, your capabilities, and be okay with creating the best thing that you could at that time, and then moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
If I wanted to try and make that first song as good as my idols at the time, like, I'd probably still be working on that one song. I probably actually wouldn't be making music at this point because I would be so burnt out on that song. But that is the preface to this whole conversation. I mean, you have to understand first of all, it's going to take way longer than you think, and that's okay. You have to be prepared for that. Now, fast forward, 7 years to me working on this album. I've only written one song for the album. I'm still working on that same one. No.
It's the same one from 7 years ago.
It's actually the same song, you guys. It's the same one. I returned to that first one and made it better. No. It's the same thing, though. I mean, I am currently at a point where I have the majority of the songs written in that rough draft stage. Some are like, I would say complete, like I don't need to add or subtract anything. I just need to mix it. Some are, there's some small tweaks I need to make. Some are like, yeah, I need to rearrange some sounds in this drop. But all of the rough drafts are there. And I got to say, I'm actually kind of dreading this next phase because I know how long it takes me to finish one song when I'm focused on it. And that's like, if I have a rough draft, it's probably going to take me like a week to 2 weeks of working on it, like, 30 minutes to 4 hours a day to like actually get it finished. And then that last 2% is literally bouncing a test master, listening to it, writing a list, and then just making like small tweaks for another 2 weeks. It's like such a long, arduous process for one song. And I'm hovering around 15 songs for the album. So multiply that by 52 weeks times 15. That's 30 weeks. And it can't take 30 weeks. I guess from now. No, it can't take 30 weeks.
That's into like next year, basically.
That's
that
January
point.
Next year, roughly. And so I'm sure at the end of this process, I will have even more techniques and tricks to help with batching that work and smoothing that process out. But just like I introed in the beginning of this conversation, I'm prepared for the fact that this is going to be an arduous process of finishing these. But I'm at least confident now in my ability to understand the different phases and work and massage the group of songs collectively upwards together, right? I understand the point of diminishing returns when I'm mixing a song and I'm like, is this better or not? If I have that thought, save it, probably save as, and then just open up a different one. And the beauty of working on a body of work is that's really easy to do. You have multiple songs to work on, and you don't have to beat your head into a wall on any given song because you have a lot of other things you could probably work on.
I don't recommend ever only working on one song for 4 straight months. And after his first experience, I imagine Rip Kinney does not recommend that either.
Never again. Never again.
Yeah. There's that, it's kind of Gus Class in the chat just called it the plateau of conscious incompetence where you know what sounds good and you cannot achieve it.
Oh,
and
man.
That's real as hell. Like, there is a place where we'll always be. Like, there's a range, where, your worst day and your best day, you're not going to get out of that range. All you can do is push them both up progressively. And if you want your song to be this good, but your top skill level is only here, then you're going to have to like work on a bunch of things and learn a lot of lessons to inch your way up to where your best day is up here. And trying to get from here to here in one draft isn't even realistic. So that's probably why you're driving yourself crazy. I know that's why I did.
Yeah. 100%.
Quick question, by the way, for the chat while you continue the story, Evan. Yeah. Who is trying to finish a song/EP and is experiencing that plateau where they don't actually know what that last couple percent entails? I want to hear from y'all in the chat.
Yeah, Miko's talking about that learning curve that takes so long, knowing what to do, but not knowing, how to get it done, and how that can get annoying. Bunny's talking about trying to polish a bunch of songs that are all kind of waiting in the wings and keep adding more to that list. K-Fish says he's been slowly and painfully working on an EP. We're all experiencing various versions of this same phenomenon, and I don't think it goes away. It just evolves which part of the process you're stuck on. You figure out one thing, and then your ears get a little better, and then you notice something you never noticed before, and then you've got to figure out how to fix that shit.
Yeah. Honestly, that is one of the things that makes returning to a song that you made like 2 years ago because you thought it was really good, but you just didn't have the skill or whatever to finish it at the time. Like returning to it, like that is a really painful process because you're like you just are so aware of all of the things you didn't do right along the way and how long it's going to take to backtrack and fix all of those things to like your new level.
Counterpoint, I find that to be a really gratifying process because I go listen to something 2 years ago where it's like, it's as good as I know how to make it sound. I've done 2 years worth of other stuff and learning, and I come back to that song and be like, wow, off the top, I know I could spend 30 minutes on this and make this 1,000 times better than 1,000 2 years ago hours could have.
I need like 10% of your optimism when it comes to reviewing my own music.
Same.
Just call me up, man. I'll just talk positive at you.
Perfect. But yeah, so like in the concept of, working on a larger body of music, that one of the things that really has struck me as being super important is first writing a lot of like sectioning it into like writing a lot of music, then picking your favorites, and then I'm going to transfer that into, then mixing down and doing the micro edits and then mastering it all and blah, blah, blah. But what I've realized is that because I've never at a point in my music production journey have I been like, okay, right now is a writing phase. Like I have a couple songs, 3 songs I still have that are like done that are going to get trickled out over the next 3-4 months while I'm finishing this album. I've never been in a position where I could do that and then be like, okay, so now is just a writing phase. I've never done that before. And now that I have, oh my God, like the hit rate in like, not hit rate, like I'm making hits, but like songs that I would deem like A-level quality on a percentage basis of like how many you start versus how many you love goes up dramatically when you're batching that writing process and all of these little things that you learn, the micro edits that you're like, wow, that makes this sound really good. You transfer that to the next song and the next song and the next song. And all of a sudden, like all these little things that you've been building and like getting better at, like feed into all of those songs that you're working on. And like just almost everything that you work on just gets better. And I've been like really, really, really like normally. Okay, so perfect example for the Dojo EP I released. I made 32 songs, and 4 of those got released on that EP. Like I started working on the EP when I was probably at like 18. I was like, I think these 4 are good enough, and I sent it to Dylan, and he's like, this one is amazing. He was talking about Don't Come Home, if you know that one.
Yep.
He was like, this one's amazing and the rest of these suck. And I was like, okay, tight. I thought these were all so good. Fuck.
Yep. Been there a couple of times. This is
to
definitely the 4 on the EP. Okay, I kind of like that one, but not those 3. Okay, those are not the 4 for the EP. I'll release that one as a single and move on with my life with the new batch.
Yeah. So basically, of those 32 songs, Don't Come Home was the second one that I made of those 32. Then the 30th and the 32nd were Mercy and Ultraviolet, which like, because then I was in a writing phase because I was like, oh shit, I don't have enough good music for this EP. I got to write a bunch of stuff. And my releasing tanked at the time because I was transitioning between projects, so I actually had time to do a writing phase, but I didn't have any music to release and I was just writing. So then like the hit rate increases. I was doing that. I didn't realize it at the time that was happening, but it was. And then actually one of the songs that I like just randomly included because Dylan sent me.
Sorry, real quick. I just want to emphasize that point. You didn't realize that it was happening, but it still did. And that's the hardest part to keep perspective on. I just want to highlight that point, but please continue.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like that's the kind of thing that like it takes repetition and of the process and all of these things. Like, I'm sure I will learn a lot from writing this album that will make the next one much easier in 4 years whenever I get up the courage to write another one, because it's such a process. But okay, so then like the second song, and then the 30th and 32nd, and the other one that was included was the 13th song of those 32. And I didn't even really love that one, but like Dylan sent me a text. He had some like a show he was playing. He's like, send me some like cuts to play, if whatever you like. And I was like, oh, this one would probably be good live, but I didn't really think it was that good for an EP. And he liked it enough that he was like, no, you need to like this. You need to finish this one. This one's definitely going on the EP. And I was like, oh shit. Which also leads back to, in this process, you have to give some trusted people a fair shot at critiquing the larger body of rough drafts to help you narrow down to which ones are the true A's and which ones are the ones that you like because of maybe it's a producer flex. Maybe you just really love the chords or something about it. Like you're so attached to it, like it's your favorite thing, but the song didn't end up working out. Like that's another thing that you can really easily lose perspective on. Like the first few things you put in the song were so sick. You're like, this is going to be the best song ever. Fuck yeah. And then you just spent too much time working on it and you kind of ruined it. Like that's really hard to get perspective on by yourself. So you have to
personally attacked.
Trust. Yeah, I'm attacking myself too. Don't send it to everyone, because too many opinions is going to pull you too many different directions. Like your two close friends that always give you honest feedback, like send it to them, send it to maybe one or two Dojo Senseis. And then like, I'm going to throw in like a wild card, like your friend that comes over that you haven't seen in a while, or not your mom, because she's going to like everything, but like some sort of like, you know, other wild card that would give you feedback that you wouldn't expect, and use the collective genesis of that feedback to help push what songs belong on there. So batch your writing session when making a larger body of work. Trust your gut, but also take the feedback that you're getting and massage that into your weighted scale of what do I want to release. And then the last part of finishing that last body of work is actually going through, and once you have the rough drafts of everything, and this is the stage that I'm at now, it's going to be incremental improvements, maybe working on each song like 15 minutes at a time, bouncing a new copy to your SoundCloud playlist or your Dropbox folder or whatever, and listening through all of them and taking notes and going back through and working on each one a little bit at a time until you have everything ready to like master, and either send it off to master or do it yourself. The process for finishing a larger body of work is the same as writing a single song, but you have to be more conscious of the fact that all of these things that would normally balloon your amount of time spent, like you can batch them, and you should, because just like writing music, your hit rate increases when you have a longer writing phase. I guarantee what's going to happen when I go to mix these records is I'm going to learn a lot of stuff about how certain things do, you know, little 0.1% improvements on different things. And I'm going to build a rack that does a cool thing for this song. I'm like, oh, this would work great to finish this bass sound on this other song. You're going to multiply your improvement across the process by batching it, and that way you can turn this larger body of work into actually like leveraging more momentum for improvement. And I think that's like the biggest takeaway that you can, from a producer standpoint, like, you know, think about when you're considering working on a larger body of work. Do you have enough music in the short term that you could continue to release and not become a ghost while you do this longer process? If you don't, do that first. And then B, like, does it make sense at this point in your career to try and beat your head against the wall for a larger body of work to get those gains, right? One question that I still don't have figured out that I want to ask you guys. Right now I have, basically the album written from a rough draft perspective, but then last week, it was like Thursday, I was working on a song, and I was finishing the guitars to this one song. And while I was like finishing recording guitars to this one song, I had an idea for this riff. And I was like, oh, I'll just lay down that riff really quick in another project. Laid down that riff, and then I was like, oh, but then I hear these chords, and then I laid down some chords, and I was like, oh, I hear a vocal idea. So I recorded a vocal idea into my phone. I didn't lay it down at the time, but then I was like, I really like this. I think I'm going to write. I think I'm just going to scrap what I had planned to mix and finish these songs for the next few days and just write this one because I really like it. And then it ended up being, one of my favorites that I've written in a while, because the hit rate goes up when you're just writing, and I'm at the tail end of that writing phase, right? So now I'm thinking to myself, like, at what point do I cut it off? Like, if in the last like 5 songs that I've made, like all 5 I've loved, and would it be a disservice to the greater project to like just cut it off and be like, I'm done writing for now? Like, at what point do you go, okay, like that's enough. I gotta finish these and then get the project out and then work on writing more, because you might lose that writing momentum that you had. But like for me, when I start a new song, it's like basically all I'm going to think about for the next week until there's like a full picture of a rough draft. And so it's going to like completely derail a lot of work that would be spent finishing stuff. Where do you draw the line?
Yeah. I mean,
tough.
Yeah.
But
go for it.
Real quick, I think you got to like tell yourself you're done, and then and kind of let yourself make you a liar. You know what I'm saying? Like, because if you get that pumped about this random idea that comes across your mind, and you just have to follow that thread, and you follow it all the way to a new finished rough draft, like, good. Like, that's a great reason to break your word to yourself.
Yeah.
I'm just going to focus on finishing, unless this idea just drives all the way to the finish line by its fucking self. True. You didn't have to force anything. You just roll with it. And so I think that's cool, like, and then, you keep telling yourself, oh, I'm just going to finish. And then if your creativity keeps jumping up, like, but one more, cool. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
totally. I mean, I think the TLDR is, yes, it's a disservice, but like everything in life, everything is coming at some kind of cost to some other thing. You writing music means that you're not going to be the best chess player in the world or this or that. And you've strategically chosen these losses in a way that you think you get the most pros relative to cons. And so I'd say it's the same thing there. One thing I'd encourage everybody to really, really take some time to think about tonight, give some serious consideration to this, is where do you kind of lie on that spectrum of how far you want to take this? Because this is something I struggle with, where it's like, I got into music because I love creating music. And I remember before, when I was like practicing guitar and scales and all that shit and learning other people's songs, there came to a point where I consciously made the decision, I'm going to stop learning other songs for the most part because I want to be a writer. Now, here's an interesting situation where you're trying to make it a career because you love creating, but you're not in the business of creating. You're in the business of finishing.
Yeah.
The same way you're not going to go out and buy a car that's 50% done or even 95% done.
Yeah.
And the same way that you would be pissed if you went to a restaurant and ordered your favorite dish and they're like, yeah, it's like 90% there. You get the idea. Like, go cook it yourself, right? It's like, that's not what people are here for. And it's precisely that fact that weeds out all of the people that are not meant for this or that don't want it bad enough. Or maybe you do want it bad enough. But the truth is, you could invest all the time in the world, make all the sacrifice you want, and still not achieve the goal you want because you didn't do the right things. And so it's that constant trade-off. Now, I think true, like, deep inspiration, like those moments where the universe just channels you with something and it's just unexplainable magic, where you just sit down and somehow like the best thing ever flows out effortlessly. Those moments are limited in life, and we're only going to get a finite supply of those moments. The name of the game is to show up every day and sharpen your skill set, so when the universe does channel that through you, you have the ability to get that out. And so I would, in my personal hierarchy of, you know, what I think is the most important, I think when those moments come up, screw mixing, screw organizing your library, screw, like, man, even like life responsibilities. For me, I find it worth it to just be like, hey guys, sorry, I can't hang out. Or when I was in school, hey, I guess I'm taking an L on this assignment because I have the full song fleshed out in my mind. So,
Yeah.
you know, I just encourage everybody to really think deeply on that. Is like, are you okay with doing this as a hobby? And if so, then awesome. If releasing is not a priority and building up a brand and putting out products, because your songs are products, much like buying a pizza or a car or whatever, then you need to be finishing, because nobody wants a half-finished pizza or a half-finished car. Nobody wants a half-finished song either. But if you're a hobbyist and you love creating, then I would say, like, don't stress it at all. Like, if you got another job that's going to supply your bills and you're not really like trying to take it there, then life is short. Have fun.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah, well said.
Amen. I mean, mixing and doing that 15 minutes to an hour or whatever of detail work from the list you already made is not inspiration dependent. Like, you don't have to be in a great headspace or whatever. Like, maybe like your ears can't be too tired to like hear what you're doing.
In fact, you'll probably be in a bad headspace. Let's be real.
Hey, I mean,
probably
doing those, yeah, doing draft 92 of the song you thought you were going to release last December can get frustrating. Abso-fucking-lutely. Especially when you know it's going to come back with draft 93 feedback. But, you know, like that kind of happened to me last night. I worked on a couple of drafts and I was going to work on yet another one. But then I was like, you know what? I need a little break. Let me like do some talk box practice, because that's something I've told myself I need to do more of. I bought this cool talk box thing and I wasn't using it very much. So now I'm like, all right, I got to at least work with this thing a few times a week. So like doing a little practice, and then I got a little inspiration and I was like liking this riff I was doing, and it kind of sounded, ooh, this could be like a track for that horror movie cipher that's just started in the dojo. And next thing you know, 3 hours later, I've got a rough draft of this horror movie cipher, and I did not mix the other song, which is something I can totally do tonight because it's still just sitting there already written with the same notes. Like it's not going anywhere. Me doing that yesterday compared to today makes no difference in the grand scheme of things. Whereas me not having laid down that inspiration that was knocking on the door at that moment late last night, I would never have that song the way it came out. It would have never happened like that again.
100%. One thing, thanks Miko for your input here. One thing that's really important to note too is that idea of opportunity cost. And I know that everybody here has at least gone through that entry barrier of paying some money and going through the contract with yourself and putting forward this commitment to make this music thing happen to whatever capacity. But the hard thing in life when it comes to this that I've very painfully had to realize over the last couple of years is it doesn't matter how many things you sacrifice out of the things that you don't want. For example, I always felt like, I can skip out on this party. I'll miss out on this thing. I'll miss out on this thing that I don't really want in order to serve the thing that I do want. And I want these 10 things here, and I'll sacrifice everything for those. But that's not where the sacrifice comes from. The real sacrifice comes from out of those 10 things you want, which 8 or 9 are you going to give up? That's the painful part. And if you chase 10 rabbits, you ain't catching any of them. So that's something I hope everybody really takes seriously and thinks about tonight, there's probably 5 things at least that everybody here wants really deeply, and in a heartbeat, they will sacrifice anything else in their life for. But if you could only have one of those 5 things, which would it be? Because being pulled in 5 different directions is going to keep you exactly where you are. And everybody in the chat, answer this for yourselves. Do you think Michael Jordan woke up every morning and meditated and then played chess a little and studied up on his chess game, and then he would read deep literature, and then he'd like cook and read up on spices and new chef techniques before he hit his sessions? Hell no. His life was oriented around that solely. Same with Mark Zuckerberg. How did he build this empire? I mean, now I think he's in the beach, like
Michael
around,
Jordan. Didn't he play baseball though too?
Yeah, when he quit basketball for a time, he was not good at it.
Okay, well
he was not good at it compared to basketball.
I thought I was going to make like
the whole rest of his life to
cheeky interjection to make a conversation piece about what you were saying, but it just ended up proving your point even more.
Right?
He didn't play basketball when he played baseball. You can only do one thing at a pro level at a time.
Yeah.
In general, yeah.
It's that attention residue we talked about previously.
Yeah, deciding what you can sacrifice to, me. In fact, we've been having these kind of conversations a lot lately, like off camera too. Just like what that we're doing is taking up time that could be better spent elsewhere. Like, what do we really want to do? Do we want to finish music? Well, we should cut out a couple of other things to finish more music. Do we really need to be on social media as much? Do we need to be doing A, B, or C that's not really getting us, all the way down the road that's more important? And Miko, it's that opportunity cost, just like you're saying in the chat there. Like, anything that you choose to do costs not doing something else. So pick the thing that you don't want to do and do something you do want to do instead.
Totally. Or, just get super popping on social media, and then I guess you can do whatever you want. But if you're trying to be at the top of your domain, we all got the same 24 hours. You can't really compete with somebody that's at that level. So in that same regard, right, it's like that opportunity cost of, do I start a new song or do I work on previous material? Now, I have a follow-up question to that, because I'm sure there are a lot of people in the chat here. I'm seeing some familiar names. I know, everybody here's got it down for the most part, but I'm curious, in your guys' opinion, when do you think people should actually go in on finishing music in the earlier stages? Or do you think people should take prolonged periods of time where they don't even think about finishing music and they just address, for example, not even drafts of a song, but let me just go in for 3 months on only making drops, only working on melodic ideas, like touching up on all of these weak points? How do you guys feel about that?
Okay, so to be honest, if I was a beginner, again, I'm absolutely convinced that the fastest way to get good before trying to put music out and make a name for yourself and have your own sound that people give a shit about, the fastest way to get good, bar none, would be to try and recreate your favorite songs with the tools and techniques that you have to try and make all the parts and make all the sounds and basically copy the arrangement and try and just put in your own pieces to recreate that song. If you did just that for a year, you would be fucking incredible after that year. The issue is that it's not like if you want to be an artist, like that means you have something to say that people should care about, not you biting everyone else's style. And the reason I say this is the reason I think, and I'm actually like 99% confident that this is the best way to get good, is because I read a book called Peak, which was basically the science of getting good in anything. And it goes over basically all of the best examples of programs and, the medical field and in the military and everything, like how when they made breakthroughs on how to get people better at things faster, cancer screening, fucking fighter pilot combat, everything. Like how to get good is basically, and I boiled down what that book said into how would I translate this to music. And it's like basically pushing yourself to create a level above which you're able to make now and learning from the top people in your field. It boiled down to a very, very basic sentence. So trying to recreate all of your favorite songs would give you a lot of that. Now, all of that to say, like, I mean, there's still a lot more that goes into it to make a name for yourself. But I do think that is probably the fastest way to get good.
I agree. And I mean, I know I have some students that regularly take lessons with me that listen to this podcast. And I want y'all to just rewind that part, rewind about a minute and a half and listen to everything Rip Kinney just said like 4 times, and then go do the arrangement exercises you keep saying you're going to do once a week. And then say, yeah, well, you know, I got distracted this month. I just want you to just listen to that on loop for a little while and then go do those arrangement exercises. Like, there's a reason the dojo is structured the way it is. There's a reason the step to get from yellow belt, where you basically have done nothing, to orange belt, where you've achieved something, is knowing how to do an arrangement exercise. Before you get into mixing or mastering, before you get into the recipes, before you're trying to do releases, it's know how an arrangement works. Because once you know how many pieces need to be in a section and what order to put those sections in and how long those sections are, then you can take any input, any cool idea, and take it to that finished rough draft form. If you're not able to do that, you're just spinning your wheels, you know? And yeah, there's definitely an argument for what Tesco's talking about where, you know, you pick one aspect. Like, I'm just focused on melodies for a while, or I'm just going to focus on drops and all that, or I really need to work on my buildup. So let me just like do 10 buildups, you know, that's all good. You know, those batching tasks, but batching arrangement is one of those things. And it's probably overall the most powerful, I think. And full disclosure, I also fought this at the beginning. Like, no, I've arranged songs. I know how to do that part. I don't want to bite people. Excuse, ego, bullshit.
Yep.
Calling my past self out. You know, some of the best songs I've made have been arrangement exercises, and every one I did after those was better because I did the arrangement exercises. And I still regularly do them. I had stopped doing them for a while until Ilgate specifically told me to start again. And I actually listened that time.
Yeah. And like even just in my daily life listening to music, I'm basically doing an arrangement exercise in my head with almost every song I listen to. It's just like any song that like catches me off guard with like, wow, like I really like this. Like, I'm dissecting it in my head, listening to it 10 times. Like, wow, okay, so they did this and this and this, and just like picking up all of the things that make up why I like that song. And then they don't like, those revelations don't always like actually get interjected into my songwriting, but on occasion I'm like, oh wow, that thing that would be cool. I wonder if I tried to do that in this way in this song. And like always studying both arrangements and just like things that you like. Never a bad idea. You're always going to continue to improve by doing that.
Amen. The reason I brought that up, and I wholeheartedly agree with everything that's been said. The reason I brought that up is because I'll see people who are in their early stages too focused on putting out a dojo EP or too focused on putting out an album or something like this, where it's like, okay, if we break it down, right, you're trying to be a bass music artist, let's say, or you're trying to be a singer or whatever. And you're writing these songs to show off the climactic part of your song, but your drops are still kind of whack. You can't really write hooks yet. And so you're setting up your intros, your build-ups, all this stuff. You're setting up this pedestal for like a little paper mache trophy. And I'm not blaming anybody for that, because I get it. You have that creative part in you. and you want to put out all these ideas that are in your mind. And I know everybody here has this grand image of what that project's going to be like, and oh, it's going to hit so hard and it's going to have this theme and whatever. But that same part of you that gives you that creativity is also prone to some faults, like mental masturbation. It feels good, but at the end of it, all you've done is just think through how sick this album's going to be that is never going to come out, and and if it does, it's not going to be in the form that you envisioned it. And so, I think before people think about like putting out a project or something, they should write at least a couple hundred songs, which sounds like a lot until you stop like fantasizing about all the stuff that doesn't matter and just accept like, I'm not going to release stuff for the next 2 years. I'm only going to write, and I'm going to allow myself the freedom to do all of these, to write all of these songs and experiment in these different domains that I'm interested in. And when you find out how to hone in on what you're trying to get across, you will have already articulated that through hundreds of songs. Like, you should have a catalog of stuff that slaps already, that people would listen to, not because they're your friend and they want to big up you and make you feel, good, like you're getting somewhere. But I'm talking like, if you're trying to compete in this, like for real, and you want people to actually listen to your music and be moved by it, you got to stop focusing on, how sick your album cover is going to be and what your track list is going to look like on this very mediocre project. I feel like I'm wording this so bluntly and I hate to crush people, but I'm going to keep it 100.
Crush them!
Like, you can't even
the
hit
public
your
will
target.
Crush you if your music sucks when you put it out. So take it from a kind source.
Exactly. It's like, if you can't even hit the Luft's target of what you're going for, and you're experiencing writer's block and your mixes are still muddy, like, you do not need to be thinking about how sick your EP is going to be. You just need to put your head down and keep working on music, because you might get picked up by a small label and you might get those 2K plays, and that'll make you feel good for a week, and you will have some cool content to put on your social media, and you can have a bad song that gets 10K plays, and you can have an amazing song that gets 100 plays. And that's not what I'm getting at here. I'm talking about if you are seriously wanting to make this a career and you want people to listen to your stuff more for more of a reason than you like telling them, I put out this project, please support me, I've been working really hard over the last year, 8 months, whatever.
Ooh, the pity listen.
Then you need to realize that like you are competing with the Nightmares and the Martin Garrixes and the Sudden Deaths and the Subtron. You're not competing with the people in the dojo. You're competing with the big leagues. And so if you want people to resonate with your music like they do for them, I'm telling you, you will save yourself so much heartache and pain. And I was the master at mental masturbation a couple years ago. The amount of projects I've thought up in my head, if only they came out, they would have changed the world, I swear. But guess what? They never did. They never did. And I wasted so much time making my private playlist contain all the info for every song and cooking up little artworks and stupid shit that just writing interludes before I had my main tracks done. Cut that out, man. It's like you'll save yourself years of pain.
Mm-hmm. Like, what's it break down to? What is a project? What is an album? What is an EP? It is a collection of dope, finished individual songs. So take a step back. Forget the EP. Forget the album until you can regularly create finished songs. That's why Evan is working on an album now, because he has finished a bunch of songs that sounded good as songs and put them out and built up an audience that will support the album Because there's no point in splashing 15 songs on a world that doesn't listen to one at a time.
Yeah.
Right?
I've literally had the idea for this album like since like a year into production, and I just knew it wasn't time yet. Like the Get Outside mixtape was like a tiny little taste of like the concept that I've been mulling about forever.
That was
like
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Story plus video plus music and all tied together and kind of
Plus snowmobiling.
Plus snowmobiling, exactly. It's something I've been thinking about for a really, really long time. And like I like an album is something I've been thinking about for a really long time. And I just hadn't even I just knew that what Tesco just said could not have been more true. And it wasn't until the Spotify started popping off and people on Instagram start messaging you like, yo, are you making an album? Like that is when I was like, okay, maybe it is time to do this. Maybe it is time to do this. And it's fucking hard, man. Like there has been so much, like it's all I think about all day. Like it is such a huge thing that you're going to put so much time and energy and effort into. If you're going to do that before you have confidence that when it gets out into the world, you A, have an avenue to get it to people that are going to give a shit, B, are good enough that people are going to give a shit, and C, that any monetary, value that you're putting into the success of this project is going to have some sort of return. If you put that album out and you get crickets, like you're going to be fucking crushed, man. Like you have to listen to what Nicola just said and take that shit to heart and ask yourself, like, at what stage are you ready to do which one, right? So like, a few years into the game, you're feeling confident, you've got a small following, like, yeah, EP time, probably. Like if you've got a bunch of singles and they're doing well, like, yeah, put together an EP, see how those go. Do 3 or 4 EPs and then, start gaining a little bit more traction and then think about an album. But and that's not a hard rule. Like you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like you don't even have to listen to us, but just generally think about the size of your audience and the amount of work that you're going to put into this body of work that you're creating at large. And is it worth it at the stage that you're at to put that much work into a single thing? Are you going to have the return on that effort? Right.
Amen.
So I want to transition a little bit into the EP, the Dojo EP that you made, Nicola.
Mm-hmm.
That was a few years ago. It was definitely harder hitting dubstep, rhythm, somewhere between dubstep and rhythm. Tell us a little bit about where you were at in your production journey at that point. Like, how long had you been making music? Like, and just walk us through that process in the context of this larger conversation we're having now about like when you were ready to make that EP.
Mm-hmm. Man, I was like 5 or 6 years into producing. Now, for anybody that doesn't know me, I started off producing metal bands. So I did that for quite a bit before getting into electronic music. So coming in, I was like, yeah, I already know compression. I already know this. I just got to learn sound design and I'm set, basically. That was kind of where I was coming at it, at the time. And I had these grand ideas of I'm going to make this progressive piece of music and it's going to be super crazy. And I was kind of all over the place in like the style I was going for. Basically, I wasn't making sacrifices out of the things I wanted. And I was like, well, it won't be country, it won't be bluegrass, but it will be dubstep and this and this and this. And I will somehow merge that together. And, that took me on a 1.5-year long journey, basically, since submitting that first draft of, like scrapping like multiple iterations of that EP because I was trying to force it into being this like grand thing instead of just focusing on writing, I'm always gonna look at my old shit and say swag. But,
Dude,
you know,
that EP is
the
definitely objectively not whack.
I appreciate
Amen.
that.
Objectively slaps.
Beatport charts
Thank you.
tell you that it's at least dope.
I appreciate that. I'm just saying, you know how it is. You know, you're looking back on your old stuff, and definitely it is better than anything else I'd proposed up to the EP thus far. But, you know, looking back, you're like, oh, so many things I could have still improved on. And, you know, that's just how it's always going to be. Like, that getting into that mindset of let me just write the best songs I can right now. And let me get like at least 10 of those or 15 of those, 20 of those before I even start thinking what I'm going to put on the EP. Like, I probably wrote 20 to 30 tracks before I had everything for the EP. And maybe like the first like one or two was written in those first 10 tracks. So when I had the first 10 tracks, I had like 5 songs I thought were going to be it. And then I scrapped more, and then I wrote more, scrapped more, so on. And you know, where I was at that point, I was feeling very confident in my abilities. I was feeling like this is the shit. Like nobody's approaching it like how I am. Like, you know, I knew I still had some stuff to learn, but I was like, nah, like, my vision, dude, it's going to be so sick. Like when I pull this off, like, and I know everybody that is writing is doing it because they have a unique voice and they want to express that. But the thing that I didn't fully realize is just because I had all of this passion and ability over the last 6 years and all that stuff, it didn't mean that I had a body of work that was worth putting out. And I was kind of in this phase of just prioritizing all of the wrong things. And like, I was looking up at the mountain and trying to tackle the whole thing instead of just putting my head down and chipping away at it. Now, I would say about half of that, like the last half, was just sitting on these songs and letting them evolve over time. So the actual writing was maybe done in like the first, 9 to like 12 months of that. And then it was just a lot of like sending it back and forth, writing a shit ton more music. I get feedback, and then I also learned a bunch of stuff. So then I incorporate it, and then I send it, and then there's more feedback that needs to be done. And then I've written like 15 more songs by then. So then there was that kind of phase where I was getting feedback and learning more that I wanted to showcase in the CP. And basically, it was a very long, arduous process. It's very humbling, to say the least, because it took me about a year longer to get this thing done than I thought. I thought like 6 to 9 months, for sure. 9 months, 9 months, right? It's going to be done. Nah. It took a long time. And that's kind of where I was at with it. So I was at the point where I was able to write cohesive music, but I wasn't able to put together a cohesive project still until a year and a half later from when I first started.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's so real. Like making sure, something that reminds me of is the fact that like we have these grand plans and these concepts for what the EP could like center around, and what the artwork could look like, and how the rollout's going to be, and what the interlude's going to be. But what actually matters, like everybody who's making music has inspiration and ideas and artistry. What actually matters in production is execution. What were you able to pull off? Like, I've had a lot of songs with a lot of great ideas that have hit the garbage pile because I could not execute on what they were. And every once in a while, I'll go dig through the garbage pile and I'll recycle some things and be like, actually, this song, I might be able to take this a lot further. And I learn a lot. And then I often throw it back on the garbage pile because there's some fundamental things wrong with it that are not actually working. And like, oh, the sound design of the main lead is crap. That's why the mix isn't coming together. And now at that point, you got the choice. Like, do I scrap the song again? Cool. Or do I like buckle down and completely re-sound design all the main elements from the ground up? Also cool. But, you gotta be able to pull off songs before you can pull off an EP.
Totally. Luke, something I think about on this topic is that Luke Rain EP when you were a rapper and talking about how long it took you to get that project out, which was like, it was between like 10 to 15 songs, right?
Yeah, it was like, the Liquid LP. Yeah, that's something. I mean, the earliest songs from the time I wrote the first little bit of the first thing that ended up on that album to the time it actually came out was probably like 5 or 6 years.
Wait, what's it called?
Liquid.
Where can I find this?
It's still on my Bandcamp, actually. LukeRain.bandcamp.com. Yeah,
going there right now.
You can even buy it if you want. If you find me in person,
I will definitely buy it.
And let me know you want it. I still have some physical copies that I never moved.
Mental masturbation, baby.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, like getting a project recorded, mixed, mastered, artwork, and pressed to a CD is a very, very expensive and time-consuming process for an artist that does not have an audience. I want y'all to remember that shit. Thousands of dollars that were not recouped for what's basically a vanity project that most people don't remember. You know?
Yeah. What were your expectations when you dropped that album, and what was the reality of it?
Oh man, I thought once you had a project and you put it out into the world, people would find it and then they would be your fans and then they would fill up shows and everybody would buy your CD and then you'd be famous and then you go on tour. And there's so many steps to the process that I had no idea existed, like marketing. In my mind, I think in the back of my mind somewhere was some weird rule where if you advertise your shit, you're cheating. And so people just got to organically find it and share it to their friends. And then everybody knows about it. And, you know, because that's how I heard about so much of the music I ended up loving and buying people's tickets to their shows is somebody like burnt me their CD that they downloaded off Napster. And then I started going to their show every time they came to town. But that's not how it worked. I'm still proud that I put that album out. And there's still some tunes on there that I listen back to. And I'm like, yeah, this is like a legitimately good song. And a lot of the stuff that I put out in that era, I still dig, and there's a lot of it that I listen to and laugh at, and that's cool too. But just like you said, Tesco, you know, you're always going to be your own worst critic in some aspects. But you know, totally. I put a ton of time into that album, and if I had just put out a series of smaller projects along the way, or you know, like singles and things like that, and focused on learning marketing and building an audience, that album, if it, you know, ever even came out in that form, probably would have had a much better reception as opposed to like me sitting in my basement working on this album forever, assuming it would do something when it came out to all the people that didn't know it existed.
How long did it take you to make that album?
I mean, like I said, you know, it's probably like a 6-year span. I was putting out some other stuff in between. You know, I was putting out like mixtape tracks where I was like rapping on other people's beats and putting them on the internet. And I put out a little EP of some of the tunes, like 5 of the 15 tunes that ended up on the record. And then, you know, I took those tunes and like 10 more tunes. I guess there was also like an intro on there too. So it's like 14 actual songs. But yeah, like I said, you know, it was probably, I think that album dropped in, fucking 2012. Fucking age checking myself real quick.
Do you think
and I think I've been working on it since like 06 maybe with some of the early songs, maybe even 05. It might have been like 7 years from the first song to the drop. Like I said, you know, other stuff was coming out and a lot of songs I thought were going to be on the album got scrapped, and yeah. But you're going to
How do you think the rollout would have went differently if you spread that across 14 to 28 weeks and promoted a single at a time? I
mean, it's weird thinking about that, because the whole technology of everything has changed. Like, you know, that time was pre-Spotify. It was pre-streaming. So, you know, it's a whole different world to think about and wrap your head around. You know, I had no idea how to market or promote regardless of you know, how well I could have done it at the time. You know, like saving up money. Like I saved up all this money to get it mixed, mastered, artwork, and pressed to CD. But I left zero budget past that for any type of marketing whatsoever. Like that would have been the first thing I would do different now, is I would have saved money for marketing, even though looking back 9 years, I don't know what that marketing would have looked like at this point, you know, but like at this point, I would have definitely saved probably as much as I would spend making the project. Minimum I would spend on promoting the project. probably realistically like more. Yeah, Miko just said, for real though, paying popular TikTokers $500 is actually a killer marketing hack. Like, yeah, if you've got an influencer that likes your shit and is willing to like make a dance to it and try to start a trend, like that's a really good call. You know, like if you are savvy with some online advertising platform, or if you know how to hack a certain social media, that could be really well worth it. If you want to hire like multi-channel digital marketing expert to like get you all over the place, and or a publicist or public relations to get you into certain places that have big audiences. Like there's so many ways to do it, and that's that's the $1 million question: is what's the best way to roll out your project to get the most possible bang for your buck and get the most eyeballs and ear holes on your album.
It's definitely something to heavily consider when in today's ecosphere of music you're thinking about releasing a larger project. Like some people would say, if you're releasing an EP, release 3 songs as a single. Say it's a 4-track EP, you release 3 singles, and then the 4th is when you drop the EP. Like, say the album that I'm writing ends up having 15 songs, you're probably going to see 7 of those as singles before the album drops. Just do 1 every month, maybe every 3 weeks, and then drop the album. Because no longer 1, 2, maybe 3 singles and then a 15-song album. Like, that's just not necessarily the best call to build as much traction as you possibly can. Even though my 2013 self, who thought up this idea for the album, is saying, no, you want people to listen to it as a complete body of work to fully appreciate it. Like, don't be stupid. Like
that. Yeah.
Be realistic.
Yeah.
Like, you need to work with the current ecosphere you have.
And people who don't know you aren't going to give you like that. So that album I actually put out on an actual CD that I gave for money to actual people that actually knew me. A lot of them did not finish the CD because it was like an hour of music. And like, I'd like listen, hey, what'd you think of the CD that you bought from me 3 weeks ago? The next time I saw him, like, oh yeah. I mean, like, I liked track 2 and track 6 was pretty sick. I only got to track 7 so far. I'll try and get back and finish the rest of it. And it's like, that's people who are like genuinely my friends, who knew me by my real name, who had known me for years and had seen me outside of the context of a show, didn't have time to finish my hour's worth of music in one sitting. And that's real. Like, I don't really listen to whole albums worth of music hardly ever these days. And I used to listen to a lot back in the day. Expecting strangers to give you a lot of their time on a whim is unrealistic. Like Evan's saying, like, put out a single, build up, find out who's listening to you, refine your marketing, get more and more people expecting to hear new music from you. And when that is actually a reality that people are expecting music from you, that's when you want to put out, an actual project. Like Evan said, he didn't actually circle back to this album idea he's had forever until people started asking him if he's making an album, because there is a body of people that want to hear more at once. People are like, oh, but Drake released 45 tracks. Yes, but Drake, when he came out first, was just featuring on other people. He would just come in and do the hook on a Lil Wayne song or a Baby song. People were like, oh, who's this guy? He's got a dope voice. I want to hear more from him. Oh, he came out with a single. Oh, he came out with a little mixtape. Oh, he came out with a longer mixtape. Oh, he's got an EP. Oh, he's on these other people's songs. And then finally, after like a few years of being famous, he came out with an album that dropped really well. And still, that shit only had like 10 tracks on it. It didn't have 45 when it first came out. That's a weird thing that people who are ultra famous can do in the streaming era and drop like a playlist of songs, see what hits, and then make music videos for that shit. It's different. Like, don't model yourself on what multimillionaires are doing when you're like at the threshold of like, maybe I should start releasing music for the first time.
Yeah, and let's not forget that he funneled over all of the passionate fans that were watching him on Degrassi, and there was that transition period where Drake was taking all of those fans and having to remind them constantly, like, yo, I know you've been watching me on TV the last, season or however couple of seasons, but like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm moving forward with. And there was that transition period even for him where he was having to constantly remind people, like you said, let people know, like, I'm not this thing that you know me for. I'm going to be doing this. And then once that was established, with traffic he already had, brought it to the project.
And what a difficult transition to make. Like, there's so many people that just like wanted him to fail. Like, nah, you ain't gonna do this, dude. You're the kid from Degrassi. Like, no way are you gonna make rap like that. Like, it actually had to be so good that like even the people that wanted to say it sucked were like, God, I can't hate it. It's sick. Like,
totally.
Like, fucking full props to him. That is such a hard transition to make, especially from his character.
It's a way easier transition than being completely unknown to getting famous for music.
True.
Being famous for something different and then switching what you're famous for is really hard, and it's still easier than doing it from 0 to 60. Like,
100%.
Man, one thing I was thinking of when you guys both, kind of said the same thing. I think, Evan, you explicitly said, like, you're like, no, like, I want people to consume the whole thing how I intended.
That's not gonna happen.
Think about this. Think about a chef you go to your favorite restaurant and you're like, sorry, vegans, but you're like, can I get a steak? And he's like, the whole cow is supposed to be consumed for you to get the experience how I envisioned it. And you're like, bro, can I
start with the tongue?
Rare steak. Yeah. And it's like,
I just want the T-bone,
that's that intro that you spent all this time fantasizing about. That's the tongue. And think about, like how much your trajectory could change and how much heartache you could save yourself if you put out a couple singles and people are like, oh, I love when you do this kind of sound design. Oh, I love the way you started that song off. And then maybe one person's like, man, you kind of butchered this part. Like, this outro's whack. Like, don't do that again. That is 3 key pieces of advice. Think about this. If you're setting sail from Canada to England and you're off by 3 degrees, right? You change your course by 3 degrees. You're going to end up in a completely different place by the time they sail across the world. And that's what those 3 pieces of feedback are. Mm-hmm. They're setting you on the right trajectory earlier on so that you have way less distance to make up 9 months down the road, 9 years down the road, 6 years in the case of that project, Luke. Like, imagine if you put out those 5 songs and people are like, yo, I really fuck with track 3. Like, everybody's digging track, 3 and 4. Like, oh, okay, I'm gonna write the next 5 with that in mind. And now all of a sudden you're getting mixed feedback like, hey man, like track 1 to 4 was pretty dope on that next project. Like 5 was 8. And then you're like, okay, cool. Now let me put out 10 tracks. And now suddenly it's like 10 out of 10 are hitting, 9 out of 10 are hitting. You don't end up with this project that's, 15-ish tracks. And it's like people are only getting a percentage through because it doesn't have enough of those factors that are engaging them. And I forgot where I was going with that next point. But y'all get the
It's kind of like that story Russell Brunson tells about, like, one of his mentors told him about, like, a comic, getting ready for his special or whatever, and it's like, you don't start out with the special, an hour of perfect jokes. You start out with like a few jokes and you go to the diviest comedy bar you can find and you get up and you tell whatever you have and you see what people laugh at. And if people don't like the other ones, you either rewrite them or you scrap them and keep the ones that worked, and just do that 5 times a week until you're able to like actually book a real show opening for somebody. And then you keep doing that and making it better and better and better. And then years down the line, eventually you've got an audience and material that'll get you ready for actually doing an entire comedy special. But like that, you can't just like, I'm going to go talk for an hour at people and hopefully make them laugh with this untested material. Like it doesn't work that way. Like,
even if you want it to really badly, you think it's going to be sick.
Yeah, exactly. Yo, I kind of want to circle back around. Like, so we're talking about like that process of drafting and that, you know, where we're in a range like between our worst day and our best day, and you're going to bump those up, you know, higher and higher the more experience you get. I was thinking about something and I want to run by it and run it by you guys and hear what you guys think of this. Like, so I've spent tons of time on tracks that I look back on and just laugh because I spent months working on this track and I drilled it into the ground until I gave up on it. And now I'm kind of thinking like, man, what about just like making that rough draft, doing a couple of rounds of either self or somebody else's feedback, and then letting that song go for a while, write some more stuff, work on some other stuff, always working on multiple at a time, but never like until it's like, oh, this is really, really good. It's 97% of the way there, and I got to work my ass off for that last 3%. If you work on it 3-4 times and it's still at 80, let it go. Let it go and don't 100%. Don't stay on it. Do anything else.
And I will tell you, the feedback that you will get on the great songs that you make, when in your head it's 80%, someone's going to tell you it's done. Like someone's going to be like, "Oh man, this is sick." Like just fucking clean it up and it's done. Like like you still have an arduous process of finishing to make that song done, but to like a great song is going to be great like from the pieces that made it great early on. And that's why what you just said is so true. You can't put too much weight into any one thing expecting it to come out amazing after you pour countless hours into it. You have to get it. You have to go through a larger body of work creating songs to find the ones that are great and then spend the time getting those all the way across the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, right? Like use the repetition and the batching of writing and continually, like you can, if you really still got that song on your mind down the line, you can always go back to it. It's still sitting there on your hard drive. It's waiting, but you've gotten better at doing so many things since you left it on the side, like, you know, and I think that's something that I really got to start focusing on is like do a few drafts of a song. If it's not close to release ready, let it go for now and just focus on making more music and learning more shit. Because, you know, plus like you said, like eventually you're going to write one that's just way better than anything else you were working on. And then that ups your bar of what you think is worth finishing, which is 100%. Important to do because like, people are like, no, I really got to finish this song. And it's like, oh, I mean, I know I'm giving you feedback on it to how to improve it. But if you really want my opinion, stop working on this. You've done a few drafts. You got better as a producer. The song is less bad than it started, but it's not great. And that's okay.
That's so important from a feedback perspective. How difficult is that? Like someone that sent you 10 tracks and, you know, 2 of those 10 you were blown away by, like, holy shit, this person is killing it. Like these are sick. And then they send you one that they're excited about that is like, it's like, I know the level that you can make. And this isn't that, but you give them feedback on how to make the mix better. Like this element's not working. And like, man, sometimes the feedback you need is just, nah, dude, like make something else. Like this isn't the one. And that's okay. That's okay. That is such beneficial feedback that you don't want to hear. It is so crucial.
Man, I've started loving that feedback more than anything. High key. Like I showed a bunch of tunes to my girlfriend a few weeks ago and was just like, yo, just tell me. You don't have to give me I don't need technical feedback. I know that's not your expertise. This is not you're not a producer. I just want, would you dance to this if somebody played it at a club, or would you go to the bathroom or get another drink or something? Like, would you leave the dance floor? And pretty much all the ones I was pretty sure were dope enough to keep working on were the ones she dug. And the ones where I was like, well, I don't know, I put so much work into it, were the ones she was like, yeah, no, this one this doesn't inspire me. It feels like a half-baked idea. Where, you know, there's like, it it was great because then I could just be like, cool, screw that half of this playlist. I don't need to keep wasting my time on them. I'll focus on this half of the playlist. And then even out of that half of the playlist, I showed those to Il Gates, and there were some of those he was just like, you know what? I don't think this is the one. This one doesn't feel complete. And I got to toss those off. And now I've got way less songs to keep drafting right now and all this free time to write new shit.
Yeah. It's so important. The honestly, the significant other yes or no test, so beneficial. And it doesn't even have to be a significant other. Someone that just doesn't know a ton about music or production, just like, does this song work or does it not? Like, even if they don't like the style of the song, like, it would definitely help if they like the genre that you're making. But even if they don't, like, someone that knows nothing about music would still be able to tell you, like, does this work? Like, as a piece of music, does this sound, does it make you want to move? Like, does it function? And like, that feedback is more important than your snare is too loud, your multi-band dynamics on this, you use too much OTT on this. Like, that shit doesn't make a great song. That litmus test of someone that doesn't actually know that much telling you does it work or not. So important.
If the song works, then let's talk about your snare EQ. If the song doesn't work, it's okay to just let it go and write new ones.
Yeah. Small sidetrack. It's something that popped in my head when you were talking that I just actually had a revelation on today in this writing phase that I'm in. I realized that not only, so I've talked about this on the podcast before, having dedicated writing days couldn't be more important, right? Like, the number one thing that has leveled up my production over the years more than anything else, by head and shoulders, like way more than any other technique, setting aside an entire day to write a piece of music and not stopping until you have a rough draft. That is part number one. But one thing I realized today is not equally important, but in the grand scheme of the song, it is still important. In the following days, like maybe say the next week after you made that rough draft, there's going to be little things like the drum fill in this section sounds too clicky, and I think I need to replace it with something, or the ARP in this section like isn't quite right. Like, do I need a different sound, or do I need to like just use a pad instead? There's all these like little things that you need to fix that aren't quite right yet. They don't ruin the song, but that need work. If you let that song sit for 6 months and come back to it, the friction of like, okay, now I need to write most of the time you're going to realize, if you had quarrels, whatever, if you didn't like it, you're going to realize that you need to rewrite a different thing for that element, right? And then returning to it a long time later, after you're not in the original mindset that you wrote the song in, the original vibe, the original rhythm, groove, it's really 10 times as difficult to find you're going to have to go through so many more iterations of trying things to find something that works for that element, because you're just removed from the process of writing that song. And so what I've realized is that if in the week following, when you make that rough draft, and maybe even the next few days, if you can set aside another 2, 3, 4 hours a day to just finish those things that you need to like actually write, now that rough draft damn near sounds like a finished song and is just engineering work. And then now, like, this concept that I'm talking about now, I realize, because the songs that I've been doing this with lately, because I've been in this writing phase, and then now the ones that I like, now that I know that I'm like nearing completion of the writing of this thing, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna, like, now that I'm working on this thing, I'm just gonna get as far as I can. When I play these ones for my significant other, she's like, yeah, that one's sick. That one's done. That one's sick. Done. Not like the feedback of like, this section just doesn't really feel right, or like there's something in this part that like doesn't quite work. Like the things that most people couldn't put their finger on that you probably know what's not working. If you're able to get to those things in like the same general period of time that you wrote the song, like I've found that actually really helps make those pieces end up better, more cohesive with the song. But B, it's not that you couldn't find a part, because they're not the important parts. They're the stuff that doesn't matter quite as much. It's not that you couldn't get to a part that works for that section later on, 6 years, 2 years. You definitely could, but it's just going to be more difficult. Like it's going to take longer. Maybe you're going to have a 4-hour writing section trying to figure out the background element for this drop, and none of them worked. And instead, if you just allot a little bit more time on the tail end of like making that rough draft to come up with those little finishing things, it's much easier to find a part that works and that you like and love, because your impression of the song is still relatively fresh. So a little bit of a sidetrack, still related to finishing, that I've found.
I mean, high key.
Like really important. I don't know. In the chat, tell me, do you guys struggle with this? Because that is something that I've like over the career of writing music, since the breakthrough of using a whole day to write a song, has been a consistent struggle. Like there's always those little things, those little elements that you need that aren't quite right, that you need to fix, and that always takes way too long to get that thing, and then it's like makes the finishing process even more arduous. Do you guys struggle? You guys struggle with that? You guys have that problem?
Yeah.
Now, while you're answering that question in the
I'll
chat,
answer for them.
Here, Luke, I want you to answer that question, and then I think we would be remiss in this conversation if we didn't talk about and dive deep into your creative process and where you're at right now for creating the Dojo EP, right? Because we've talked about
ours,
and
that.
You're right in the thick of it, and so I think
sir.
your basically mind state and thoughts on that are going to be more critical to this audience than anyone here. So.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as like finishing the pieces of a track, like absolutely, like the more of those pieces that aren't quite working that you can get working, either A, that first day, or B, like really quickly, the closer you can get it, going and like changing a little EQ move or turning something up or down. Like I love getting that advice, because it means like my song is working. But sometimes you'll get like, man, like the actual, like the songwriting part of this is really dope, but that patch or that element or the vocal take you actually have in there is fucked. Like it's just literally not going to work. You need to either A, replace the sound and rewrite the shit, or B, go break it down, like hit save as, delete every plugin you have on that shit, figure out what it sounded like to begin with, why you even liked this sound, and rework all of the processing on it. And like that's something I'm going through right now. There's a single that has been accepted for the Dojo Remix of Dojo Classic EP that's going to come out as a compilation on the label in December. And right now I'm really doing draft after draft trying to fix it. And one of the main things I had to do was start over. Like I literally, like the main vocal, like how it's chopped, the notes it's hitting, where I placed it in the song, all that's working. But the processing I did to it was messed up. Like the way I pitched it, the plugins I used on it, the EQ curves I put on it, the compression were all fucking it up. It was not sounding good. And, finally I asked Dylan, like asked Bill Gates, like what, like, how do I fix it? How do I work on this note? He was like, oh man, dude, just something I have to do all the time when I'm finishing songs is just like completely redo the part. Just delete all the processing and start over on that thing. Cause somewhere along the way, you fucked shit up. He's only listening to a true track bounce. He's not in my session telling me what to do. He's listening like, that vocal is buzzy and fuzzy and it sounds like a fucking kazoo. Like it's a dope line. The melody's good, but the vocal production sucks and you just got to start over. It's okay. And that's something that I'm getting my head around that it's totally okay to do, and that it's better to not fight it and just go redo shit, you know? Because that's something you got to do sometimes. And even if it is 2 years later, like high key, this song, me and Shoes started the song like 2 years ago, and we made a beat and we liked the beat and we didn't know what to do with the beat and we forgot about the beat. And then we found the beat again. And then we decided to turn it into a remix of a Spiderhound song. And we started working on that shit, and we worked it and we were going to put it out. It was high key on Spotify for like 1 day. And then I found out it was in the running for this EP, and I deleted it from Spotify. And then I sat on it for months until I heard that it was definitely on the running for the EP, and I got some notes back. And now I've been working on it like every few days for a month and a half, trying to get it ready for label release. And it's so much of a better song. Like, the vocals sound so much better now. The arrangement, the mix, the entire lead sound of the drop has completely changed thanks to a super dope note by Tesco. Where I got like, oh, I'll do a little vocal chop here, Diplo style. And then Tesco was like, that's like the coolest part. You should just make that like the lead of the song. It was like, oh, of course. And, you know, so it's like, again, having trusted people to show your songs to that can like help you have better ideas on the track or expand your ideas and realize like, oh, that thing I did in just this one little spot is the coolest thing on the track. Why not let it carry the track? Now, all that being said, just about one single, and this is what I'm talking about. If you're not finishing singles, don't worry about the EP, right? So my EP approach right now, after 2 failed attempts to come up with a concept and then have 4 songs that I worked on that fit that concept, to have most of the songs be rejected by the label, taught me, fuck your concept, come up with a bunch of songs. Don't be attached to any of them. If any of them aren't working, they don't matter. Throw them away. And then I just keep sending a new batch of singles that I'm working on anyways to Illgates and be like, do you like any of these? Do you specifically not like any of these? Give me a yes, no, or maybe. Any of the yeses and maybes I'll put on a short list and circle back to you in a couple weeks. And just, you know, now it's like, oh, the ones that were like, ooh, probably definitely yes at the beginning, a couple of those just got knocked off the list. And that's great, because that means my overall body of work, it keeps getting better and better. And at some point, Illgates will say, yeah, these 4, I like these 4. These are ready. And I've got a whole bunch of other singles that I can put out in the interim between the time when my EP gets accepted and when it actually comes out on the label's schedule, because it's got to get in line behind all the other projects that get finished between now and then. So like I said, I'm working on a song for release in December. That means there's a minimum 6-month gap between, you know, and it's probably going to be more than that by the time my label's ready, because other people are getting their shit ready too, before my EP's ready. So, you know, my biggest advice is be less precious with the songs, less precious with the concept, less precious with what this whole artistic idea has to be. Finish single songs, and as they get ready and accepted by the label and put on that short list, then once you've got a short list, then think about which of the ones on the short list might go best together. Which of them kind of tell a story? Is it better to have, like, for my debut EP, is it better to have like an eclectic group of songs that show my range, or like a really specific mood of songs that show one of my sounds and showcase the different versions of that sound? I don't know. I'm not attached to it currently. I make a lot of types of music. Let's see which ones rise to the top.
Yeah, and for anyone listening that is working on an EP, potentially maybe even an EP for the dojo, like, this is to be expected. Like, you're going to go through probably 5 to 10 times as many songs as you thought it would take to get that final batch. And this is across the board for anyone that has made a black belt EP in the dojo. Like, that's a big accomplishment. Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's hard to get those songs that really are 100% A grade bangers to make past the threshold, the very high threshold that we set for that, you should just expect you're going to have to write a lot more music than you think. You're going to get a lot more rejection than you think. Like even the people that you listen to their EP and they're probably like, man, that must have been easy for them. Like all those songs are so good. Like this person's so good. Like they definitely made way more songs than they thought for that EP. It's difficult. And so just, expect that challenge, be prepared for it mentally, and understand that it's going to take time, and that, it's okay if the first 4 songs, maybe even none of them made the cut. Like that's going to happen.
Yeah. Amen. Like I had a whole EP centered around one of the songs was going to be my tune Air Force One Kenobi, and the other 3 were songs that Dylan was like, bro, I've heard you make better songs than these. I don't think you should worry about these 3. I was like, oh shit. Okay. Well, Air Force One Kenobi is a single now, and I'll come up with this other concept. And again, like on that one, it was like, I like one of these, keep that on the maybe, but these other 3, I'm not really digging this problem, that problem, the other problem. I was like, oh shit, now that you mention it, yeah, I can see what you mean. I wasn't thinking of it that way. And that one is still on the short list, but the other 3 I've just scrapped both times. It's like 75% of the songs I presented got completely scrapped. And that's okay. That's to be expected. Like if 1 out of 10 ideas you write gets finished and released, you are killing the game. If you go any higher than that, can I take a lesson from you?
Yeah, you'll be Drake level.
Yeah, right. I've got a bunch of songs that I'm currently working, and even ones I was really pumped on a couple of months ago, I've trashed because I was like, man, I was really pumped about this thing and that thing that I did, but overall, when I stand up and dance to it, the groove isn't that great. And what's a dance song without a groove? Nothing. It's some sound design I was kind of proud of that I'm over. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not my tempo. Maybe that's not the mood. And that's the cool thing. If you all listen back to that Hexus episode, and this is up on our Instagram too, there's he talked about a 3-circle Venn diagram of how to find your sound. And it's what was it? It was something, the crossover of music that you like what you're actually really good at making and what you have fun doing. Take what are your influences, take what's already your strengths, and take what you have the most fun doing, and keep making music combining those 3 types of elements until you land on something that's actually working. But mostly you just got to write a bunch of music and be okay throwing most of it away.
Yeah, there's a Japanese idea called Ikigai, I think. Probably butchered that pronunciation, but it's that triple Venn diagram of what comes easily to you, what do you like doing, and what will people pay you for? And that is the ideal or optimal or whatever. Not quite how I want to describe it, but that's the path you should take, right? That's the path of least resistance. Also something we've talked about. It's why struggle, doing this thing and running all these circles, not getting you where you want, when, there's something that comes really easily to you that you enjoy, that people will give you money for, or that will change people's lives. When I say money, I just mean you are providing value to these people in some kind of capacity, and they want to pay it back to you.
Amen. You gotta provide that value for people, right? And the value is music that they're like, oh shit, I love this for whatever reason. And like Rip Kenny said earlier, sometimes you're just pumped about this song because you were producer flexing on it. Oh, I sound designed all of the sounds. That gives it value to me. That doesn't give anybody else value.
Yeah.
If they love every sound you designed, and the order you put them in, and the way it made them feel and move, that is valuable to them. Yeah. But if just the underlying process behind your production is completely unimportant until they already absolutely love your song, and then they might want to watch a behind the beat video on that shit.
Yeah, I think that's really what ties everything together on Don't send out stuff before it's ready. Don't ask for pity likes, all of that. The reason you're not getting what you want in return is because even though you put out music, you are still taking from people. You know that it's not at that level where it's going to affect people that deeply. You're not providing something. You're asking for pity likes and pity reposts and pity playlisting and all this stuff. And yeah, even though you put out a product, it's still taking from people instead of, holding back, calming that ego a bit, which is way harder said than done. I understand the feel to want to put it out and believing that that's going to be the thing. But unless that value is there, unless your music can selflessly make somebody's life better, then it's not going to get you what you want. And, I think all of these like side tangents and stuff, I had a very similar conversation with a friend of mine who's just really smart dude. And I realized I was getting pulled in all kinds of directions and, all kinds of endeavors that I was wanting to do that were music related, but weren't actually what I wanted to do, which was to be an artist, to make the best music possible and to put out as much of it as possible while I'm alive. And he's like, man, like you're doing all these tangent things. And the parallel here is the tangent things are cooking up EP covers before the shit's ready, beefing up your social media pages and following for follow and all that stupid shit. And he's like, man, like if you just focus on your artist career and like you just sit down and just write a lot of music that moves people, that people really resonate with, that they can't get anything else, that will transfer over into every aspect of your life. Because the thing is, while you were, cooking up your little EP cover, or while you were hitting people up on social media, going through all your DMs, follow for following, telling people like, yo, please follow me. Like, I swear this thing's going to be super dope. If you just kept putting out dope singles and you learn from our mistakes and everything we said here, I guarantee you that there's going to be somebody that's really moved by single number 3 who is a way doper, visual artist designer than you are. And then maybe track 7 is going to land, in the ears of a marketer who's like, bro, or gal, or, it's like,
Sis.
yes, they're like, yo, like your stuff is amazing. Like, it made me feel some kind of way. And I have this skill in marketing, or, hey, I'm in with this group of people who can help you, or something. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, everybody that you look up to has a team behind them. And all of this stuff that you're planning on doing in this grand vision you want to execute is going to require people. And if you don't have that base product, which is the music, then you're never going to be able to build that team. And you're always going to be fighting for pity likes and these bad DJ slots that all the locals are fighting for that are kind of ass, if we're going to be blunt. And all of these like
playing first
crumbs.
And last for free beer.
Exactly. You're fighting for crumbs when if you just said, all right, I'm going to be hungry for a bit. I'm going to stop trying to satisfy this hunger by inhaling crumbs off the ground. And I'm just going to focus on my craft. Then you're actually putting something of value. People are going to be attracted to you. They're going to want to help you out. And you're going to make more progress, and you're going to make better music, and you're going to make huge strides much, I hate to say quicker because it's not what it's about. But the thing is, it's true. If you can focus in on one thing, I'm not saying the road's going to be easy, but there's going to be a lot of energy that would have got wasted otherwise that is now going towards the thing that actually matters. And it all gets done in the end.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah. Man.
Well, that seems like a bow.
Yeah, I mean,
I like it.
Yeah, I hope that helped everybody here. And we're always open to questions. As you know, we do viewer questions regularly. You can always reach us at contact@thehumanmusicpodcast.com if there's topics you want to see us go into in the future. We've done whole episodes on one question before, so
In fact, the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, appreciate everybody here in the chat. Big up.
Big
You know how it
chat.
is. Big up.
Yeah.
Thank you for
And,
hanging with us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for all the dope gifts and dope comments. I highly enjoyed reading along with you guys, and appreciate the audience. And thanks to everybody who's following us and subscribing on their favorite podcast platform, telling their friends, and helping us grow the community here. We really appreciate that. Make sure you follow us at the Human Music Podcast, at Human Music Pod on Twitter. And say hi to us. Let's keep the conversation going online.
Yeah.
And, till next
Much love,
week,
everybody.
y'all. Peace and peace among worlds. Ha 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 ha. All right, humans. Thanks for being here with us for another awesome episode. Highly appreciate you. Like we said, make sure to follow us at The Human Music Podcast or at Human Music Pod on Twitter. Hit that subscribe, the like. Make sure you leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or a comment on YouTube. It all helps us get out to more producers just like you and grow the community. We'll see you next week. Till then, peace out and peace among worlds. I like it.